Well, I'm Mike Lessiter with Farm Equipment Magazine, and have a great pleasure today to be with my friend and personal and professional mentor here, Don Henning. And we're going to talk about some of the history of farm equipment, in which Don actually brought to our laps 20 years ago. But going to take this opportunity to talk to Don about some of the history of farm equipment in Johnson Hill Press and what set the stage for farm equipment to come into the Lessiter Media family. So pleasure to be with you here today, Don. Thanks for making the time. Real quickly, just tell us where we're our setting today and where we are doing this interview from.
We're on our home place we call the farm, and we have 31 acres with 16 acres of woods. 10 acres is tillable, and the rest is I'm take care of as the caretaker.
Mm-hmm. And this is a Fort Atkinson.
It's in the Fort Atkinson area, out east of Fort Atkinson, and in a very nice wooded area.
Mm-hmm. A beautiful place.
Yeah,
beautiful
thank you.
place. Yeah, I'd like maybe as a starting point to let our viewers and listeners learn something about Don Henning and your days in Nebraska and what brought you into the ag publishing world.
Okay. Well, I grew up on a 160-acre farm. It was the homestead settled by my great-grandfather. And it was fortunate. It was a very attractive farm in a very nice area of Nebraska. And it was a very typical farm at the time. We milked a few cows by hand. We raised a few hogs and produced hatching eggs for the local hatchery with our poultry flock. And it gave me exposure to a wide range of animal culture and also agriculture in general. So I attended high school in Crete High School, and again, it was a nice small town environment. Played football, had fun, and
you had a good football career.
We had a good football career. My senior year, I was All-State, and also my senior year, I was named to the state farmer in the FFA in Nebraska. So both of those honors I wear proudly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I didn't know about that second award. Yeah. That's great.
And then after high school, we were obligated to serve our country at the time. And so instead of waiting for the draft notice to come, I joined the Air Force, which was a very good thing for me. And it got me out of the small town rural environment and exposed to the world. And they gave me good training in electronics, in radio and radar. And I went on to work on airborne radio and radar equipment. And then that led to an assignment aside from airborne equipment with the Armed Forces Radio and Television Network, where a friend and I were the technical guys at the TV and the radio station that served the troops and the Aramco population, the American population at Aramco in Saudi Arabia, in Dhahran, Saudi Arabia.
Okay. Would you call that your entry into media?
That would be my entry. I did a little on air, but mostly we were technical at the time. But in the process, I learned a lot about television. I learned about radio and broadcast. And when I came back to the university and went to the University of Nebraska, I had a part-time job as a student engineer at KUON-TV. And then in the summers, I substituted as an engineer for vacationing engineers at the commercial station, KOLN-TV. So I got good exposure to the media at that point. And then in college, I studied to be a vocational agriculture teacher. And when I graduated, there weren't many schools open, so I entertained interviews. And I had a very good interview with DeKalb. Most of the big schools came, big companies came, Ralston, Purina, 4x4 feeds, some others. But I settled in on DeKalb, and that was a very fortunate decision as well. Because at DeKalb, I ended up in the advertising communications department working with Leo Olson, who was a very significant factor in ag communications at the time. He was a mentor to me and provided a lot of valuable guidance in my career.
Yeah, I've heard you talk a lot about him.
Yeah, Leo was special. Yeah, he was special. And he was one of the founders of NAMA, which is now, and it started in Chicago. And he was an early president of NAMA. And it was a good experience to be in his department, and he gave me all sorts of opportunities and encouragement.
I love this story about your vocational ag assignment. That if I could have you tell that, you know the story I'm talking about with the paper that you wrote.
Okay.
Yeah, you could tell us about that experience.
Sure. Well, I was a junior in the vocational ed training program at the university, and the head of the vocational agriculture training was Dr. Howard Deems, and he was also my guidance guy, and he came into the classroom one day. These are all future teachers that were there. Most of us in that class also were doing practice teaching at the time. And he opened by saying, the first day, each of you will have to make a contribution to agriculture to get a grade in this class. And I remember thinking at the time, that's an interesting assignment. I wonder what he has in mind. Oh, really? And then he outlined the challenge that he expected us to address, and that was the best grade was going to go to an individual or individuals who got published in the National Vocational Agricultural Journal. The next grade level was to go to those who got published in the state vocational education journal. And those who didn't address either of those would be asked to write a lesson plan that would be distributed to all the vocational education departments across the state of Nebraska. Well, I decided to go for the top grade. And
go big or go home, right?
Yeah. I wrote an article calling on my experience in the media, with TV in particular, and some other things that I had picked up. I got published in the National Vocational Agricultural Journal, and I got the top grade. But then the best was yet to come, because that article that I got published as a junior in college was a significant enhancement to my resume. And when I joined DeKalb, instead of going into their training program, I jumped right into the communications job with Leo Olson. So it served me well, and that started me on a career in communications, which I was naturally adapted to. I mean, it was the right place for me to be.
Yeah, and opened up a big industrious career for you in ag publishing because of a vocational ag's challenge to you as a junior in college, right? Yeah. Right.
But I owe a lot to Dr. Howard Deems, and I wrote a tribute to him and his contribution to my career. And I think that's going to be published shortly in the same publication.
Yeah, excellent. Same publication?
That same publication.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, awesome. Good. Maybe, so tell us about what happened from DeKalb that that brought you into Fort Atkinson, maybe the path there.
At DeKalb, I was the public relations manager, and then I sensed that some of the strong foundation that was DeKalb in my early years was starting to crack a little bit. And so there were a couple of false starts, and I decided that I needed a career in communications rather than to commit my life to a DeKalb career. And so I considered starting a PR consulting firm, but then met Bill Kivlahan at Agricultural Associates, and he invited me to join him and bring my thoughts with me, and they gave me an assignment, and as it turns out, that was a pretty good experience. I was 3 years with Agricultural Associates, and
that's in northwest suburbs of Chicago?
In Arlington Heights. Arlington Heights. And I was given the Surge Dairy Equipment account, and edited their magazine for dairymen and developed their ads. And then we got the Crows account, and I managed the Crows account, and had 3 good years there. But I also knew that that was going to be an interim stop, because I didn't see that as a career end. And Johnson Hill Press was doing the mailing of the Surge Babson Brothers magazine to dairy farmers, and that's when I met Jonathan Pellegrin. We had it printed in Madison and then shipped to Johnson Hill Press in Fort Atkinson, and they did the finish, and then they maintained the mailing list and did the finish mailing. And that's how we became acquainted, and then eventually he offered me a position at Johnson Hill Press after 3 years.
Yeah.
There.
Okay. I know very, very big and significant project was what you had done with Clyde Height, and if you could tell us that story a little bit.
DeKalb had developed a hybrid called XL45, and it was a hot hybrid, and I was the PR person, trying to get as much good publicity about the DeKalb hybrids as I could. And I became acquainted with a farmer in Moweaqua, Illinois, by the name of Clyde Height. He had a substantial acreage there, and he was a very assertive corn farmer in that he would try things, and working with Alice Chalmers and the Ag Chem people and the fertilizer company and DeKalb, he planted, I think, the first corn crop farm-wide in 20-inch rows at the time, at a very high population, 28,000 plants per acre. I think he planted 29 or 30, hoping for 28,000 finished plants, with the objective of getting 200 bushels per acre on a field scale basis. 200 bushels per acre had been accomplished in small plots before, but never on a field scale basis. And Clyde had that as his target. And I was fortunate to be a part of that at the time. And he accomplished that. He averaged 201 bushels on 188 acres. And it made news in every major publication: Successful Farmer, Farm Journal, Prairie Farmer, and all the others who Clyde Height became famous. Yeah. And I was fortunate to be a part of that, representing DeKalb. And then he went on the speaking tour with the Corn Soybean Clinic, which moved across the Corn Belt, the corn soybean areas, and he was a very popular draw at the clinics. He and I, he wanted help with his speech, and so he and I sat at his kitchen table and developed his presentation and his speech, and he told his story, and he became a rather well-known corn farmer. But it put him on the map, and it kind of put me on the map by association. And that's the Clyde Hyde story.
Yeah.
I owe a lot to Clyde.
It's interesting, when we were doing the no-till anniversary museum a couple years ago, and we went to Alice Chalmers, who they threw a lot of stuff out when things went into bankruptcy and stuff. We found a gentleman in Kansas who, kind of a historian, and he sent Jeff and I a bunch of things, and one of them was an Alice Chalmers newspaper that had the Clyde Hyde story was on the front page, and I knew your connection to that, so it was neat, and we displayed that on the museum boards in the Louisville event. So
we met Clyde the year before, and XL45 was still seed was still very scarce, and then but he had all of the ingredients that he was going to make a story someplace, and then we got the seed he needed to plant on a field scale with XL45, and it put that hybrid on the market, and it gave DeKalb a dominant position because it took it made big volume in the farm, in the Central Farm corn area.
Yeah, excellent. Great story. Yeah. Great story.